I forgot to show you the hate crime that happened on Fox News. If you guys know who this guy is, he ran for mayor. Curtis Silva. He's the Guardian Angels or whatever. My cop dad loves this dude. That's so funny, dude. I mean, it's like your dad's a cop. Eric Adams is a literal cop and has spent most of his time like shutting down libraries so he can fund the police more so that cops can get more overtime to play Angry Birds on their phone at the subway station. And your dad still is like, no, I think this guy's even better than that. It's like libertarian cops, dude. It doesn't make sense. You're saying that like the cop mayor is not as good and not better than the guy who is not he thinks Eric Adams is racist to white cops. My dad is Latino. Yeah. Well, Eric Adams is racist to white cops. That is true. He did do that classic, like Eric Adams did that classic thing where he was like, guys, the NYPD is racist. I mean, he did that. And everyone was shocked when they found out that the NYPD was racist. He was one of those like, we have to reform the white supremacist institution of the NYPD by like making sure that the real racist cops are black instead of Italian, which is kind of like black, but not really. That's what he did. It's like, listen, you need to make sure that it's black people running the white supremacy show here, okay?
Well, in fact, our guys have just taken down one of the migrant guys right here on the corner, 42nd and 7th, while all this is
Can you pan the camera?
They've taken over. They've taken over. You'd like the camera over there if at all possible.
He's like, watch me doing a hate crime. Listen, me and the Klan, me and the New York Klan over here, we're doing a hate crime, Sean. Sean, you like this? Bada bing, bada boom. We got this. Bleep. Over here doing, we'll his ass up over here. Bleep, bleep, bleep. I'm slurring, Sean. I'm saying the right words. Liberal media can't silence me, Sean. I'm gonna say it.
Oh, you got your key open, guys.
It's out of control. Out of control.
Yeah, it is out of control. You're literally doing a hate crime on national television.
There. All right. Now, Eric Adams often complains he's getting no support from the federal government to help him with the surge of Joe Biden's unvetted illegals in New York. And that could be because of the so-called border czar is a little distracted right now. According to a report, Vice President Harris has now suddenly, quote, found her footing. And she's now apparently getting.
I love that he just watched a group of brown shirt thugs beat the shit out of some random guy that the dude literally openly was like, yeah, this is one of them immigrants right there. Hey, Sean, look at this immigrant. It's awesome. And Sean Hannity doesn't even acknowledge it and just moves on. That's great. That's great. Things are very normal here in the United States of America, okay? Very, very normal and very, very cool. But yeah, this is the founder of Guardian Angels, Curtis Silva, and this is in 1992. Said on Tuesday that he faked his 1980s kidnapping and 5 other exploits to help the Guardian Angels survive its early years as a volunteer crime fighting group. Remember, these guys are a volunteer crime fighting group that popped off in like the heat of the crime wave, in New York and the subway stations, where they basically were vigilantes that would go around and like do the same thing that you just watched. I think they existed or they peaked around like from the late 70s all the way into the 80s, I think. Which crime wave? No, like back then crime was definitely way higher. Let's be real. I mean, New York, like that's why the real reason, and most likely it's because of lead poisoning, but the real reason why everyone can turn around and say like a lot of these cities are genuinely much safer than they used to be is because of crime back then. Because yes, crime back then was actually crazy. It's because material conditions have improved. I think this is one of those instances where like it might literally be leaded gasoline, because you have seen a similar decrease in the rates across the world, like in areas where they were utilizing lead in the paint and in the gas in general. But yeah, like I said, this guy's a freak, and the fact that this this dude is still operating spells doom and gloom and trouble for America. Anyway, here, this is the other migrant story that we were going to look at. It begins. New York City started arresting migrants.
Several asylum seekers were recently arrested after an attack took place on the NYPD. here in Times Square. But after being controversially released, they may have fled the city and the country. And critics say this kind of thing is probably going to happen again.
Plenty of questions tonight about the aftermath of a brutal attack.
4 out of the 5 men originally arrested were released without bail.
Why aren't they in jail right now?
I feel so conflicted because, like, you know, I want to say a lot of things about this, but on the other hand, like, listen, you are gonna get, if you assault someone, it don't matter if you are.
Criminal justice system is upside down.
Even more concerning, it's believed some of those suspects have already skipped town.
What do you have to say to the people of New York? Do you have nothing to say to the citizens of New York?
Police report a jump of
I'm not gonna lie, those kids like flipping off the cameras kind of went hard. Like, I know it's like one of those situations where you're like, yeah, you're not supposed to do that. Yeah, it's like, okay, you fought a cop. What were the vibes like on the cop side? That's important to understand and assess. But also, when I saw them come out and they were like being perp walked or like leaving the precinct or whatever, and they were like throwing up the double bird, I was like, shit, dude, that goes kind of hard. This is gonna make people extra racist for sure, but like, it does go kind of hard.
1,885 assaults in 2022 to 2,235 last year.
My mom is counsel for the HPD. This is overhyped as fuck in the wrong direction. Like, none of these are real issues that are being discussed in this video. Yeah, no, I mean, as far as like crime goes, any conversation that you have about like immigrants, as soon as you bring crime to the equation, you're doing this thing that reactionary people do all the time, right? This is a thing that we do when talking about black people. This is a thing that we do when talking about trans people. If you are looking at like a group, if you're looking at a subgroup that isn't the in-group that has like the power in society, but instead you're looking at a group of a group that's oftentimes a victim of like some kind of marginalization, you're doing that specifically to cast the entirety as a monolith, that they are somehow more responsible for crime than the entire population. Yeah, you inherently are tying them to crime as a feature of the community. And that is the reason why, because we are so susceptible with our lizard brains to these biases, these cognitive trappings that we experience on a daily basis, that's reinforced through the media, stereotyping, and just like broader fears that we have, what you immediately must do is look to empirical evidence, because empirical evidence cuts through that. Now, can numbers lie? Of course, you can lie with statistics. You can cherry pick data, blah, blah, blah. That's why what you need to look at is the per capita crime statistics for undocumented migrants. And the reality is that, of course, every group of individuals are going to have people that end up doing crime within those groups of individuals. Of course, there is no, we're human. Right? Every human being at a certain point is going to either be victim to a crime, commit a crime themselves, or know someone that has been victim to a crime or has committed a crime themselves. Is perfectly normal, is perfectly valid. This doesn't mean it's good. It's not a justification for it, but we have to look at why crime occurs. That's number one. And two, we have to analyze, if we're going to look at statistics, we've got to look at the actual statistics on the matter to no longer get stuck in these cognitive traps. So what do I mean by this? Well, you already know what I'm going to say. If we look at empirical evidence time and time again, it has been proven that undocumented migrants actually are responsible for less crime per capita than natural-born U.S. citizens are. And there's obvious reasons for that. I mean, we can speculate as to why, but I think one of the more obvious reasons is that, like, you can go and get arrested and be deported and ripped away from everything you know if you've been living here for like 10 years, 20 years without being documented for the crime of having a busted taillight. So like, I think a lot of people that are undocumented, because the punishment is way more severe for them than it is for someone who's a natural born U.S. citizen, are very aware. They're risk averse. They don't want to do any crimes whatsoever. So it's like doubly ironic when people try to make it seem like all undocumented migrants are actually like MS-13 gang members with face tattoos, and they're here to do like the most vicious machete crimes you've ever heard of, right? That's the irony of the affairs, because the discourse is led almost entirely by reactionary sentiment. And yet when you look at the actual crime statistics amongst undocumented populations versus like natural born US citizens. Natural born US citizens are way more likely to do crime than undocumented immigrants. So yeah, the other problem here is that, like I said, because they are marginalized and portrayed as like scary people in the media, especially, that we have no way of analyzing it other than seeing it as a monolith. And I don't like that. So always be aware when someone starts talking about migrants and crime, just remember that that's a very reactionary framing.
People's xenophobia be having them say the most ridiculous things because they'll take one case that has something to do with migrants, by the way, and never question the fact that the media is sensationalizing the case or with the real facts. All it takes is one fucking headline disrespecting migrants or making migrants out to be criminals, and then that somehow becomes a blanket justification for terrorizing, policing, and criminalizing migrants, even when it's as insane as the fucking mayor putting on NYPD gear and going out and arresting migrants. People will justify that. Meanwhile, white men shooting up the fucking country every year. Mass shootings on mass shootings, manifesto on manifesto. White man just beheaded his own fucking father the other day.
What do you say to taking jobs and not paying taxes argument? That is also incorrect. Migrants, there is no lump of labor. This is like this is a fallacy that was disproven in the 18th century, I think, or 19th century, if I'm not mistaken. The only reason why immigrants can be seen as contributing to depressing wages is specifically because of the two-tiered immigration or two-tiered labor structure that we currently have in place that actually comes as a consequence of treating people as undocumented migrants versus documented migrants versus natural born US citizens. So that is the reason why the undocumented labor pool is seen as a way to depress wages, because the agriculture industry, the poultry industry rely on migrant laborers, whether it be documented migrant laborers that take advantage of the currency conversion, or even the documented migrant laborers that, capital owners that take advantage of the documented migrant laborers, like in the agricultural sector, that where these people are basically reliant on their jobs to stay inside of the U.S. borders. So they will do whatever the they can to ensure that they don't get fired. They're way more servile, I guess, quote unquote. But beyond that, as far as not paying taxes goes, this is complete falsehood. Immigrants actually pay into taxes, and they don't even get the amenities, the very minimal amenities that the American government offers, or the very minimal social safety nets that the American government offers to begin with, but they pay into it. They pay into Social Security, they pay sales taxes. So the notion that they are taking more than they give is also a falsehood. So yeah, what do you say to the people who think being undocumented itself is big enough to crime to consider all these people as criminal? To them, I say they are wrong. Crime is a construct that we develop. Not all crimes are actual crimes in the way that you understand it, and that there was a certain point where slavery was not considered a crime, and as a matter of fact, escaping slavery was considered a crime. Just because something is legal does not mean it's moral. In this circumstance, it is definitely not moral, and even if you want to think about it as a crime, oftentimes it is considered a civil, or there's a misdemeanor, and not like a serious felony to cross over the border. And that's understandable. And it shouldn't even be a misdemeanor at all.
In the name of being right wing. But that would never be a fucking justification for the police state to turn its fucking ire towards the white man, right? Okay. There's nothing more dehumanizing and says what you really feel about a people. If it only takes, in a country with millions of people, there are millions of immigrants, millions of migrants. But if y'all can see a headline about a handful of migrants doing something or accused of doing something, then that's justification fucking just xenophobia and treating migrants however. Meanwhile, that is never the case for nobody else. White people do not become representative of their group. When there's a white mass shooter for...
Yeah, she's describing exactly what I was saying. The phenomena that only happens when there is a person doing something bad that is seen as a representative of whichever marginalized group we want to shit on. This never happens for white people, of course, or white men in particular. I mean, let's not make false equivalencies. Running a red light or being undocumented is not on the same level as assaulting another human, cop or not. Yeah, no, I didn't. Wait, what? Unless you personally believe legitimately that like there is a phenomena of like undocumented migrants like regularly going and playing like the knockout game with cops or some shit. This doesn't make any sense, right? Because the way that Fox News is presenting the story is though like it is as though these undocumented migrants in New York are just like running around and like beating the shit out of cops or some shit.
Here we are in Times Square, right where this incident took place. Now, some of the people involved have been arrested, released, others never got caught, and there's a manhunt underway for them right now. Where are you guys from? Arizona? If people beat up the cops in Arizona, do they get released without bail? No. Now, why those folks walked free, that's its own controversial issue, which we'll get to. But first, it's important to understand that although there seems to be mass outrage over all of this from everybody, including citizens and the police, what many people don't realize is that this kind of thing in New York, an attack against police or something crazy that just goes unpunished, that's how things normally work in New York. And look at this. Late last year, police officers were assaulted after asking people to stop smoking cigarettes in the subway where there's cameras everywhere. The officer in that incident ended up in the hospital. And look at this other crazy story nobody heard about.
I can't believe this guy is a... Wait, you guys said this guy's a liberal. What's happening? He's going crazy on like people are assaulting cops left and right narratives right now. This guy's a liberal? This y'all's liberals? What's happening?
Someone had an illegal weapon in the subway, committed a crime, and they were also released without bail. And what that means is this story, the controversial arrest and release of these suspects, is part of a much larger thing happening here in New York that is very frightening and that nobody really wants to discuss. And that's why we're not only going to break down what happened between police and the asylum seekers, we're also going to go over why the district attorney released them without bail, and we're going to look at actions the NYPD is now taking that some people think are controversial and retaliatory. But first, we've got to go over why the NYPD was attacked right here in one of the busiest, most iconic parts of New York City.
It's one of the grossest parts of New York City. Sucks. Holy shit. Damn, dude, you guys said he was like a liberal. What's happening? This is the least reactionary New York liberal now. What's happening?
Around 8:30 Saturday night, you can see 5 men and 2 officers interacting on camera. Seems calm and ordinary until the pair of officers attempt to take down one of the men in yellow, pictured here, and then it gets ugly.
You saw the video. Reprehensible. Cowards.
It starts with...
So, as you can see from the video, the police, they were here and they were just out on a routine patrol. But then they saw something suspicious happening and decided to move in. And then they put their hands on one of the individuals, and that's when everything took a turn for the worse. Now, these officers, they're armed. And even though this was an extremely tragic incident, armed officers could have decided to escalate things further. And the fact that they didn't shows incredible restraint on their...
Damn, dude. They didn't immediately dome the random, like, immigrant teenagers. That's crazy. Oh, thank you. Extreme restraint, sir. Thank God they didn't immediately do a straight up execution.
But to add insult to injury, the controversial actions taken by...
Bro, I don't even know what happened in this situation. I only saw Fox News articles of it, and people were like, what do you have to say to this, Hasan? And to that I say, listen, dog, if you punch a cop, yeah, you're gonna get apprehended. It's GG's. That's normal. It doesn't fucking matter if you are undocumented immigrant or not. Video? Oh no, this is gonna be too scary. We can't watch this, I don't think. Wanted for assault. I'm fucked up. Wow. I'm mad. Bro, here's what they did wrong. Okay, here's what they did wrong. Are you ready for this? That's a stand user. Okay, that's it. You can't be doing that. This stand user could be anyone. Why did the footage cut? Seems like the cops may have done something to provoke them getting their asses beat. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the they did. And I have already said that a civilized society would put cops and civilians on even footing. And that like, if a cop throws hands on you and it's an unjustifiable situation, you should be able to defend yourself. But of course, we do not live in a civilized society. We live in a bullshit society. Now, I don't know if this situation calls for it. I don't know. I'm simply talking about the principle of it. Okay. And if that principle existed, then in this situation, Mitch Jones editing. Anyway, if we did have that kind of understanding of the situation, we would probably be a little bit more understanding of situations like this in general. It is kind of crazy that they're so like cops are just like, how did they get so bad at their jobs that they can't apprehend like one teenager? Looks like they decided to fuck with the one guy. They're walking away. So what happened? Like, do we know what the background is? Like, what do the cops do? What do the kids do? The only article I see that says anything is there are questions as to what sparked the encounter. So we just like moved on from what sparked the encounter to like only be to be like, yeah, dude, look at these scary undocumented migrants. They're beating cops left and right. Is that what it is? It says they resisted arrest, but doesn't say why they were arresting them. How has no one cracked this story? 4 reported migrants who attacked NYPD officers have not been arrested in Arizona. Officials say the people in ICE custody do not match the identities or names of those involved in a New York attack, 3 senior law enforcement officers said. On Tuesday evening, a spokesperson for ICE said the agency had apprehended 4 people that believed to be involved in it. Wait, did they just fucking arrest a bunch of random Mexicans in Arizona or some shit? Like, what the f? They were like, must be them. Arrest them, officer. It's these Mexicans. Well, if it's not these Mexicans, it's fine. They probably did something different. They probably did a crime of a different variety.